Hey everyone, this week we're kind of jumping into something new, which is inequalities. We talked about inequalities earlier in the year, but we're switching it up from rational numbers. And inequalities are something that'll be really helpful for you guys as you go into 8th grade. So what inequalities are is you guys are used to equalities, which are equations. But now we're going into inequalities, so things that are not equal. And then sometimes they are equal, but you'll see that we use different symbols in the equation sign. So the definition is an inequality is a mathematical sentence that compares expressions. It contains the symbols less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. To write an inequality, look for the phrases, and we'll talk about the following phrases, to determine where to place the inequality symbol. So these are the different symbols, and you'll be able to decide after we talk about it. But first I wanted to talk about the fact that we are used to things like x equals 2. What inequalities do is they change the equal sign. They're no longer equal. So now it might be x is greater than 2, or x is only less than 2. And so it would be only numbers that are less than 2 that make that true. So that's what an inequality is. Okay, here are the symbols. So this one right here, that is less than. So whatever's over here is less than whatever is over here, and that's how you read those. So this handy table is pretty helpful. If you need to come back to this while you guys are working through your problems, that's totally fine. You can pause it and leave it on the screen. The other thing to know is that when you graph these things on a number line, if it does not have a line under it, that means it's not equal to whatever the number it's talking about is, and it'll have an open circle. Whereas if it does have a line under the symbol, that means it could be equal to the number it's comparing the variable to or whatever to, and it would have a closed circle, and we'll look at those examples later. But remember, you can come back to this table if you need to for reference in order to remember how to graph. Okay, so let's first talk about writing word sentences as inequalities. So remember, when you have an inequality symbol, the smaller value goes on this side of the inequality, and the bigger value goes on this side of the inequality. And by this side, I mean the little point of the inequality arrow. Let me see if I can get rid of those. The little point of the inequality arrow goes to the smaller value, and it opens up, or the big side of the inequality symbol goes to the bigger number. So that's kind of how I remember it. All right, so a number C, okay, well right away I'm going to write C is less than -4. So we're comparing C and -4. So it says is less than -4. So C is less than -4, we would use the less than symbol. Now it does not say is less than or equal to, so I get to just leave it with that symbol, and there we go. Our answer is C is less than -4. That's how you'd write that. Okay, a number K plus 5, so K plus 5 is greater than or equal to 8. So we have this expression, K plus 5, and it is greater than or equal to 8. So I've got 8. So now I've got to say, okay, what's on the left side is bigger. So the bigger part of the sign goes towards the bigger value because it says it's greater than or equal to 8. Now it also says or equal to 8. So I'm going to write it's greater than or equal to, so we'd use that symbol. And when it says or equal to, that means that K plus 5 is bigger than 8, or it could equal 8. If it didn't have this line underneath, it would mean that it could not equal 8. It could only be greater than 8. Okay, another type of problem you'll see is it'll be asking you to tell whether the given value is a solution of the inequality. So what a solution of an inequality is does it make it true? So if I'm gonna ignore all this for a minute, and we're gonna say, is it true that 7 is less than 10? Is it true that 7 is less than 10? Well, yes, that is true that 7 is less than 10. So that is a true inequality. Okay, now what if I said that 19 is greater than or equal to 28? Is it true that 19 is greater than or equal to 28? Is 19 bigger than 28? No, it's not bigger than 28. Is it equal to 28? No, it's not equal to 28. So this one would not work. That is a not true inequality. So keep that in mind as we're talking about the next couple of problems. Okay, so this one is asking x plus 1 is greater than 7. Well, we have no idea if this is true or not, but all of a sudden they give us x equals 8. So I'm going to rewrite this, and I'm going to rewrite it with everything I know. Instead of writing x, I'm going to write what x equals. What does x equal? X equals 8. So instead of writing x here, I'm going to write 8. So I'm going to write 8 plus 1 is greater than, I'm going to make that look better, is greater than 7. Okay, now I still have to decide if this is true or not. I'm going to simplify this side. 8 plus 1 is 9, and I still have greater than 7. Is it true that 9 is greater than 7? Yes, it is. 9 is greater than 7, so that one is true. Or we could write yes. Okay, next one. It says 7y, 7 times y, is less than 27. Well, heck, I don't know what y is. Oh, wait, they tell us that y equals 4. So I'm going to put that 4 in the place of the y right there, and we're going to figure out if this is true or not. So I'm going to rewrite it. 7, and I'm replacing this y with a 4, but we have to be super careful. Remember in class when I would write two things next to each other like this, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's 74 because I put the 4 instead of the y. Well, you have to be super careful because these two things smushed together actually mean to multiply. So to multiply these two things together, think about if you can remember how to show multiplication when we smush two things together. If you said parentheses, nice job. So we're going to put parentheses right there. Make sure you have those. So it's not 74, it's 7 times 4 is less than, because I'm keeping this sign right here, is less than 27. So 7 times 4 is less than 27. Well, we've got to figure out what is 7 times 4. 7 times 4 is 28. So 28 is less than 27. And we don't know. Is that true right now? Is that true? Is it true that 28 is less than 27? No, it is not true. So this would be no. The given value was 4. That does not work for this as a solution for this inequality. So you would write no, or whatever selection it gives you that you can say no, that doesn't work. Okay, the last thing that's super important with inequalities is being able to graph them on a number line. Now, going back to that table that we talked about at the beginning, less than or greater than, you graph those with an open dot because those do not include the value you're talking about. Less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, you graph that with a closed dot because it can include that value. So when we're looking here at this example, it says x is less than 5. So can x be 5? No, it cannot equal 5. It has to be less than 5. So we are going to use an open dot on this while we're graphing this. Okay? And I'm going to label my number line. So if I had, like, this could be 0, and this could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this would be -1, -2, and all the way. Okay, so now I know I have to make x is less than 5. I already decided that I'm going to use an open dot because it is less than, it cannot include 5. So I'm going to put an open dot at 5. No, that's not good. So here's my open dot at 5. Sometimes people like to put their dots above and then graph left or right and do it above the number line instead of doing it directly on the number line. I like to do it directly on the number line. Okay, so is less than 5. So right now we have an open dot at 5. Now I've got a graph less than. So which direction is less than? Is this direction less than, or is this direction less than? Well, we know that this is getting bigger and this is getting smaller. So less than has to be in this direction to the left. So I'm going to fill in this number line to the left to show that x is less than 5. So we started here at 5 with an open dot. Started here at 5 with an open dot. And then we graphed to the left. All right, graph the inequality. This is our final problem together. I'm going to, right now I see I've got negative 1/4. So before I even start talking about these inequalities, or this inequality, I'm going to set up my number line. Okay, so negative 1/4, I'm going to start, let's say, at 0. And then I am going to say, okay, if we're doing fourths, then I want to say 1, 2, 3, 4. That is going to be, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be negative 1. Here is negative 1/4. Here is negative 2/4. Here's negative 3/4. Sorry that my handwriting's so bad on the screen. And then here's negative, this is negative 4/4, or 1. That's why I wrote 1. And then on the other side, we're going to have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 1, 1 and 1/4, and so on. Oops, that's not a 4. There we go. Okay, so now I can look at my inequality because I've got my number line set up. Remember, less than or greater than, that has an open circle. Less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, that has a closed circle because it does include the number. So I want you to look right now. What am I going to use? Am I going to use an open circle or a closed circle? If you said we are going to use a closed circle, you are correct because it has the line underneath, and that means that it will include negative 1/4. So right now I'm going to put my closed circle, my closed point, on negative 1/4. Now, it says W is greater than or equal to negative 1/4. So remember, what direction do I go? This way, numbers get bigger. To the left, numbers get smaller. So W is greater than or equal to negative 1/4. So there's my negative 1/4 right here. W is greater than that or equal to it. So I'm going to shade greater in the greater direction. Okay, so that's how you do that. I would really recommend going back and looking at the table that was in the very beginning of this video. Here it is, this table. I would recommend kind of having this up to the side while you're doing your big ideas assignment. It's super helpful, and you'll remember to graph, you'll remember to use the correct dots if needed. Also, I just remembered one other thing that I need to show you guys, which is that inequalities are reversible. So if I say x is less than 8, the little part of the inequality symbol, this little point right there, it's pointing to the x. X is less than 8. That inequality is the same as 8 is greater than x. Those are the same inequalities. They're just flipped around. It's okay to reverse it like that, but you have to be really careful. The big part of the sign still has to be with the 8. The whole thing has to flip over. So another example of that is if I have, like 7y is greater than or equal to 2. 7y is greater than or equal to 2. If I wanted for some reason the 2 to be on the other side, I could do that. and then I put the 7y on the other side, but then I have to flip this symbol to match what was on the sides of that symbol to begin with. So the 2 was with the little side of the symbol. The arrow was pointing to the 2 because the 2 is less. So I have to do 2 is less. Oops. Make sure that that side of the symbol is still pointing towards the 2. And this does not change the way that you graph it. It just changes the way that you read it. So this one says x is less than 8. And this one says 8 is greater than x. Well, that means the same thing. As if x is less than 8, that means that 8 is more than x. Okay? So just be aware. Sometimes you might get a problem that has, 7 is greater than x, but we're used to kind of seeing the x on the left side, so you might want to flip it to x is less than 7, and just remember 7 is greater than x. That's the same thing as x is less than 7. Alright, if you made it to the end of this long video, good job, kudos. I think this is the longest one yet, so sorry about that, but there was a lot to cover. Remember to refer back to the table at the beginning of the video if you need to for your assignment, and if you need to ask questions, make sure you do that. Keep going with your guys' hard work. Thanks so much, and have a really good week.